Welcome to this edition of Rev'd Up. I'm Leanne Brothers.
And I'm Tyler Strong.
Tyler, a huge weekend with the 55th running of the Daytona 500. Lots to talk about.
I tell you, there are a lot of things to talk about heading into the race. A lot of question marks, a lot of unknowns. Let's go ahead and jump to the highlights of the Daytona 500 from this past Sunday. You can see Tony Stewart giving Danica Patrick a little pre-race advice, maybe, as she started on the pole and led the field to the green flag to start off the 55th running of the 500, leading Jeff Gordon and company down into turn one. We'll go ahead and jump to lap 32, though. Trouble coming out of the tri-oval. Casey Kane gets turned in front of the pack off the nose of Kyle Busch, taking a lot of would-be Daytona 500 favorites out of contention, including Kevin Harvick and Tony Stewart, who you see right there with lots of damage. There sits Kevin Harvick in the infield. We'll jump to lap 90. Danica Patrick makes history in the 500 as she crosses the line to become the first female driver to lead a Sprint Cup race under green flag competitions. Towards the end of the race, Matt Kenseth coming out of turn two with engine troubles. His fellow JGR teammate Kyle Busch would also experience engine troubles the next lap. Final lap, Jimmie Johnson leads the field down to the tri-oval, holding off a charge from Dale Earnhardt Jr., but he crosses the finish line to take home the 55th Daytona 500. You see Jimmie Johnson celebrating there in victory lane. A great start for his crew, including Chad Canals and also his wife getting a kiss in victory lane. Great start to the season there for Jimmie.
Yes, it was very accomplished victory for him. His first win in Daytona since 2006. It was also his 400th start. It was. So that's a big accomplishment as well. The only other drivers to do that have been Dale Earnhardt, Richard Petty, and Lee Petty. And that's
some elite company to be in for sure. And one interesting thing was able to get Jimmie Johnson into victory lane, his strategy in practices. There's a lot of practices leading up to the 500, but Jimmie Johnson, his crew chief Chad Canals, purposely kept Jimmie off of the track during the drafting practices when everybody will get out there and run really close together, just because they didn't want to tear up a lot of cars, unlike some people did in Speed Weeks.
Like Carl Edwards. Poor Carl Edwards. He wrecked 5 times during Speed Week. I know by the end of the race, he was just ready to get out of Daytona and start fresh.
You got to believe it. And the thing about it is, none of those wrecks were Carl Edwards' fault. It was just the wrong place at the wrong time. But in the end, Jimmie Johnson gets his second victory in the Daytona 500, and that's a sign of trouble to the competition when Jimmie Johnson can start off the season in full power like he did on Sunday.
Yes, it is, and it's great for Chad Canals too, because the first time Jimmie won back in 2006, Chad wasn't able to be there because he was suspended at the beginning of the season. So to be able to share that together, I know was a special moment for both of them, as well as Rick Hendrick. That was his 7th Daytona win.
It's hard to believe Rick Hendrick. He's a staple in the sport. He's been around for so long. He leads all owners in Daytona 500 victories, like you talked about, getting his 7th, coming with Jimmie Johnson. He was also there when Jeff Gordon has won 3 times, and also a couple of other people. The name slipped me at the moment, but still Rick Hendrick, one of the great owners and one of the great guys in NASCAR too.
Yes, the race, though, Tyler, wasn't really what I expected.
It wasn't for me either.
Nobody really knew what to expect because of the Generation 6 car, but there wasn't really a lot of excitement. It was a lot of single-file racing, and if you weren't in that front pack that was drafting and you backed off just a little, you lost that momentum, and then it was just a very boring race.
It was for me too. I got to be honest, as a NASCAR fan, I was a little disappointed coming out of Sunday because there was a lot of excitement like you talked about. The new Generation 6 car building up with the hype about that. Danica Patrick sitting on the pole, and it was good for NASCAR. Their ratings got a huge boost because Danica Patrick was at the front for the majority of that race and was even at the end too before she finished in 8th place. But still, it was a little bit tedious, and you can't blame the drivers necessarily because they ran single file for most of the race. They just wanted to take care of their equipment. They just didn't want to tear anything up. But for the viewers like us at home, it was a little boring at times, but it still proved to be a pretty exciting finish.
It did, and there were 5 lead changes between Hamlin, Gordon, Danica Patrick, obviously. Matt Kenseth, who led majority of the race. That was a shame that he blew an engine. That was just
It really was.
Really bad luck for him.
And what was even stranger about that, like I talked about during the highlights package there, Matt Kenseth went down with engine troubles. The very next lap, Kyle Busch, who if you notice was running in second place when Matt Kenseth went down, he also went out with engine troubles. And so I think Joe Gibbs Racing is probably scratching their heads a little bit heading into Phoenix this coming weekend, saying, are these engine troubles really something that's going to plague us all season long? That's just one storyline we're going to have to keep our eye out for as we head through the season.
Yes, but a great thing for the fans that I know I enjoyed watching was the new in-car cam, the gyro cam that they have.
Loved it.
It makes you feel like you're sitting in the race car with them. Going in to the turns, that camera stays vertical. So it really shows the banking and gives the fan a whole new perspective of, it kind of puts you in the driver's seat with them.
I got to tell you, one place I'm excited to see that camera is here in a couple weeks. They'll be in Bristol, and Bristol's known for their high banks, and so you can sense how the driver gets thrown into the banking, and the camera angle shifts so quickly to really show the degrees of banking there, and you have to kind of tilt your head to kind of put it back on the plane, but it's just going to be fun to see how Fox has come up with that and come up with all kinds of other different things for this coming season.
And we've got details on that, plus much more stories coming up, so make sure you stay tuned because we'll be back right after this.
Yes, ready. Go get it.
Oh, come on, Randy. Animal shelter, here I come. And no, I'm not crazy or emotionally damaged. That's a stereotype. I just belong to a total loser. I'm a good dog. So if you want a pet, adopt. And if you see Randy, tell him he dropped his wallet.
Hands can do incredible things. Now they can even help save a life with hands-only CPR. If you see an adult suddenly collapse, just call 911, then push hard and fast in the center of the chest until help arrives. Learn more at handsonlycpr.org.
This can't be happening.
This can't be happening.
Of course it's not happening. Armored car. Listen, having money isn't about luck. Make your own coffee, save $1,000 a year. Feed me.
Feed the pig.
What's that? I don't know. Something I kind of made. Ooh, what's it do?
What do I do? Well, thanks for asking. I ring my bell and I like to dance. What do I do? Well, thanks for asking.
Ow! Yeah, it still needs a little work.
Anything's possible. Keep thinking. Get started on your own inventions or just play some games at inventnow.org.
Welcome back to Rev'd Up. Thanks for staying with us.
Tyler, normally the big news coming out of Daytona is the actual race, but not this weekend. We had another issue in the nationwide race with the wreck from Kyle Larson, which is big news.
Yeah, it was a big wreck, as you can see on the replay right here. It looks like a normal come to the finish here. Regan Smith comes out of turn 4, gets turned by Brad Keselowski. Madness ensues behind him, including Kyle Larson, whose car gets rear-ended up into the catch fence. Debris just completely litters the tri-oval, cars dashing everywhere, but you can see the real issue here in this next replay. Kyle Larson entering the tri-oval gets turned from behind up into the fence. His car goes airborne, penetrating the catch fence that protects the spectators from the racing action. You can see Kyle Larson's car, the front end of it, completely ripped away, but here's where the real damage was done.
Yes, you can see there's nothing left whatsoever. There's his engine, which ended up in the grandstands, along with the front suspension and his tire. Another tire flew up into the actual stands where spectators were sitting, injuring over 30 people, some of them taken to the infield care center. Others were taken to the local hospital.
Here's what Tony Stewart had to say.
I've never seen anything like that. I mean, we've seen petty, we've seen a lot of big ones here, and I've been a part of a couple big ones here, but I've never seen anything like that. That's one of the times when I wish I didn't have a rear view mirror, because that was an ugly sight.
So as you can see there, even drivers were really concerned for the fans, and it was just a shock to everybody. 5 of those fans are still in the hospital currently. They haven't been released yet. And NASCAR has had their hands full because they also are facing lawsuits now. Some of the fans that were injured are seeking help from the Morgan & Morgan lawsuit down in Orlando. And I actually have a quote here from attorney Matt Morgan, which says that his firm wants to know whether or not the Daytona International Speedway could have invested more money in trying to protect those spectators. So that's the lawsuit right now facing Daytona.
And I tell you, it's going to be a big issue going forward as well, and it brings back up the issue, you know, what kind of risks do these fans take heading into the speedway? The fans feel like they should be protected. They feel like they should just be able to go and enjoy a race just like you would going to a football game or to a baseball game. So NASCAR, their research and development centers are always trying to get to the head of the curve and trying to see what they can do better. So I wouldn't be surprised if going on throughout this season we maybe see if the scientists and everybody behind this try and find some kind of way to protect these fans a little bit better so they can feel safe when they go to these high-speed tracks like Daytona and Talladega.
And the safety crews did a good job repairing that. They were up all hours of the night before the Daytona 500 race, so they did a great job trying to get all of that fixed so that fans would be protected and would feel safe sitting in the grandstands. And they also offered fans that were sitting in those seats, they were able to relocate if they chose to do so.
But that actually wasn't the only controversy coming out of Daytona. I guess this one exactly was going into Daytona because some of the drivers and some of the other teams were concerned about, yeah, you guessed it, Danica Patrick, who was sitting on the pole for the race this past Sunday. Some were concerned about not really how she fits into the car, but exactly how much she weighs. I know that's a sensitive topic when it comes to ladies, but it can actually be a big deal when it comes to NASCAR.
It is, because a lot of the other drivers that are heavier, they're worried about whether that weight compensation will be made up, because if she weighs lighter and she's in the car racing somebody else that weighs more, is she going to have an advantage over them? But NASCAR has made sure that they've implemented that lighter drivers have to have more weight in their car, so that way it just levels the playing field and everybody has a fair shot at winning the race.
It's where if you're under a certain weight that you have to add 10 pounds more to a car for every pound that you're under that weight. And a lot of people were talking about, and some analysts, how at Daytona and tracks like Daytona and Talladega, it's not really a big factor there whether she's lighter or not, but it's actually when it comes to races like this coming weekend at Phoenix, and after that at Las Vegas, and even at Bristol, where you'll have to really watch that issue and see if it rears its ugly head. And hopefully it doesn't, but it's something to keep your eye out for sure.
And congratulations to Danica Patrick, too.
Sure.
I mean, that's a huge accomplishment for her and sets a statement for all the ladies in the racing industry. And Danica had the best finish since Janet Guthrie back in 1980, who finished 11th. And Danica, of course, finished 7th. So just a tremendous job by her and her team.
Yeah, the thing about it is, it's not like she finished 7th and she lucked into that 7th place finish. If you've been watching the entire race and you see that she finished 7th, you would have think, yeah, you would think, wow, she finished 7th. She was up and running 3rd and 2nd, as you saw earlier in the show. She even led a lap at Daytona, so it was very impressive to see. And I think she's going to have something as she goes to these racetracks in the future and learn something there. Other competitors are going to have to watch out for old number 10 out on the track.
Yes, they will, and it says a lot for the crews as well, and how hard they work during the off season. Fans don't really, all the focus is so much on the drivers that you don't really pay much attention to the crews.
It's true.
But a lot should be said from her finish, and all the teams really, about how hard these teams work in the off season.
And the teams are going to continue their hard work, as this coming weekend is the race in Phoenix, down in Arizona, down in the desert. It's always going to be an exciting race, and it will be. We'll take a break. When we come back, we'll have our picks for the upcoming race at Phoenix, so don't go anywhere. We'll be right back right after this.
Big dreams and good grades aren't enough to get into college. There are actual steps you need to take. Finding someone who can help is the first and most important. For the next steps, go to knowhowtogo.org.
What if a disaster strikes without warning? What if life as you know it has completely turned on its head? What if everything familiar becomes anything but? Before a disaster turns your family's world upside down, it's up to you to be ready. Get a kit, make a plan, be informed today. Learn how at ready.gov.
Up, college is hard. Down, those books are heavy.
My sport is football, but my passion is education.
Right up here.
So every year, I take promising high schoolers on a college tour
Lights there, darts there.
to show them that higher education means a brighter future. My name is Nnamdi Asamoah. I don't just wear the shirt, I live it.
Find out how you can live United for Education. Give, advocate, volunteer. Go to liveunited.org.
Do you wear this?
Hey.
Ready to go?
Yeah, but the fire's not out.
Close enough.
Close enough? If it's too hot to touch, it's too hot to leave. I mean, the next thing you know, you've torched our whole neighborhood.
Which is why we're not going anywhere.
Exactly. 9 out of 10 wildfires are caused by humans.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Welcome back to our final segment here on REV'D UP. Leanne, Daytona, Speed Weeks, all of that, it's done, it's out of the way. Kind of a season in itself when you think about it. But since the 500 concluded on Sunday, we head further into the schedule. We got Phoenix coming up this coming weekend. Just to give you a little preview of how the standings currently sit, heading into the race this weekend, Jimmy Johnson sits in first place in the Sprint Cup standings, followed by Dale Earnhardt Jr. and Mark Martin. Those are your top three. And if you notice, if it sounds a little similar to how the 500 finished up, well, it's pretty much because that's how the standings set up right now, because it's the first race of the year. Still a long way to go. The only really variations you'll see is where maybe one driver led a lap, whereas another driver didn't. For example, Jeff Gordon finished 20th in the 500. He currently sits 19th in the standings, but the standings right now don't really matter that much. Take, for example, 2002, Tony Stewart coming out of the Daytona 500 finished 43rd, dead last in that race, ended up being the Sprint Cup champion at the very end of the year. So still a long way to go in the season, including Phoenix this coming weekend. It's always an exciting race down in the desert.
It is. The 1 mile racetrack, there are several drivers that are good there. You've got, of course, it's Team Hendrick. You've got Jeff Gordon, Jimmy Johnson, Dale Jr., Casey Kane. They're all very strong at the super speedways, as well as Kyle Busch and Carl Edwards. Yes, Carl Edwards had a bad week this week. Everybody has bad luck, but I think he's going to be a factor at Phoenix. He's my pick.
I believe you're right. Yeah, when there's bad luck, and then there's Carl Edwards' bad luck that he had in Speed Weeks. He tore up 5 race cars. It was really bad for the Fastenal team. But like you said, I believe that's a very good pick, including Kyle Busch. He's always strong there. But for my pick for Phoenix this weekend, I want to have to go with a Toyota driver like Kyle Busch, but I want to go with Clint Bowyer in this race, because if you think back to the chase race last fall at Phoenix, Bowyer was running strong in that race, and Jeff Gordon got a little frustrated, so to speak. That's probably putting it pretty nicely, but Jeff Gordon took out Clint Bowyer out on the track, and Clint Bowyer was pretty much out for blood. He was hopped out of his car on the track, went back into the hauler area trying to find Jeff Gordon, and pretty much beat him to a pulp if he could find him. But luckily, he didn't find him, and for the most part, I think that's all settled out. But
yeah, the stakes were really high during that race, too, so I don't think we're going to see that much action, but hopefully it will be a more exciting race than what we saw at Daytona, and a little bit more bumping and banging and not so much single file racing, but we'll see.
I think it's going to be exciting. You're going to stay tuned next week and find out what happens.
Exactly. The green flag drops at 2:30 for the Subway Fresh Fit 500, and that will be on Fox, so make sure you stay tuned for that.
It's going to be exciting. Make sure you tune in next week for REV'D UP to see it all.
We'll see you next time.